Hello, everyone. My name is Lydia Martinez. I am the owner of Elle Marketing and Events, and today I want to talk about scary bad marketing. It happens. It has happened to all of us. And one of the things to think about when you're thinking about your marketing mix and your communication is anything that you put out there reflects on your company. Not only that, but it can reflect on your company for a very long time. So that is one of the challenges of marketing. You want to put yourself out there. You want to put your company out there. You want to be the face of your brand a lot of times if you're a small business owner. And all those different things, you want to be sure that you are being aware of what your marketing is, and also just know that it has a lot of longevity. So one of the things that I always try to talk about is review everything that you are putting out there. Have multiple people take a look at it. One of the basics is check your spelling, check your grammar, run it through an editor. So for example, me, I am not a great speller. That's my big secret. I learned to spell and write in Spanish before I learned in English, which means I never really learned to spell in English because to me, everything should be spelled phonetically. So that means that I have to run everything through a very detailed spelling and grammar checker so that I don't embarrass myself. And when I forget, I inevitably make a mistake. And so that is one thing that I know about myself, but also is something to keep in mind because people will call you out on it. One prime example, when I was at Whole Foods Market, my graphic designer and in-store artist did this big, beautiful foam core cutout, double-sided, illustrated pomegranate. I mean, this thing probably took her about 5 hours to do, and it was stunning. And we were hanging it from the ceiling, and it really, truly looked just beautiful. But as we hung it from the ceiling, what we had happen is somebody pointed out to us that we had misspelled the word pomegranate. It wasn't something that could be erased. It wasn't something that could be redone. It was something that literally we had to pull down and throw away because we didn't double check the copy before she started working on it. You know, in graphic design and doing hand-drawn illustrations, that's not really writing or spelling, it's drawing and illustrating. And so your brain doesn't like check spelling and things like that when you're doing that. It was really embarrassing. It was also a huge waste of time, resources. We had to toss something that we had planned on having hang up in the store for 3 months. And so that's one of the reasons why you'd want to double check those things before you put them out there. Another thing that that sometimes comes up is you want to be sure that you're really reviewing your strategy before you put it out there. Have multiple people weigh in on it, whether it's a marketing expert, whether it is a leader in your team, whether it's an outside consultant or coach. You want to be sure that you are hitting all the correct notes. And that you're not missing the boat on something, or that you're not being insensitive about something. So one example of that, again, was when I was at Whole Foods Market. And one of our strategies was to do as many videos as possible for our social media pages. We wanted to really showcase the behind the scenes of how we were doing things in the store. So one day the meat guys call me down. They're like, hey, we're getting ready to do our house brined corned beef for St. Patrick's Day. It was several weeks out. They were getting ready to do it. Come down and video this. So I walked down and I was standing in the meat department, and they have this giant injector needle that they use to pump up the corned beef. A lot of corned beef out there uses a red dye number 5 in it, and they wanted to show how we use this beet powder to get that beautiful corned beef color, but naturally. So they're injecting the corned beef, they're pumping it full of this red brine, and I should have I should have clued in because they were dressed head to toe, like they had face masks, guards on, they had these giant plastic aprons. They were really decked out. And I should have let that be a clue that something was about to happen. Well, as this corned beef pumped up and pumped up and pumped up, all of a sudden out of some of the different holes, like giant red splashes of liquid started squirting out everywhere, dripping down the walls. Like it looked like something out of a Quentin Tarantino film. Even though it was a process that was expected from them, it looked horrific on video. And so even though it was our strategy to show as much behind the scenes as possible and showcase as many videos as possible, I said, we're not going to share this, guys. It looks horrific. We are going to make the decision to not showcase this particular aspect of the business because people won't understand seeing it, especially if the sound is turned off, that is not something from a horror show, that it's a beat brine. They won't understand. So we opted not to use that. That's one of the reasons why you want to be aware of your strategy, but also be aware of when you should not deploy your strategy or have multiple people look at that. If it had been up to the meat guys, they would have just shared that and not thought anything of it. They would have thought it was cool and funny, and it would have been a mistake. That's one of the reasons why it's really important to have multiple eyes on things and also filter out the stuff that you should leave aside. The other reason why it's important to have multiple eyes on your social media is to be really aware of any biases, possible cultural misunderstandings, any sensitive filters that you should be avoiding. And that's why it's really important to have a diverse team looking at your marketing so that they can weigh in and give you insight and input based on that diverse perspective. So a prime example of this recently, of something that was really tone deaf, was the Pepsi ad with Kendall Jenner, where there is a protest going on and people are in the streets and there's police there, and she comes out of a photo shoot with a Pepsi and hands one to a police officer, and all of a sudden everything is smiles and flowers. How tone deaf was that ad? And Pepsi got massive amounts of blowback for that, as she should have, or as they should have, because it really truly was insensitive. It wasn't considering what was going on politically or why the protests were happening. And so all those different levels or layers of people talking and planning that commercial, someone should have said, hey, maybe this is totally tone deaf. So you also want to be open to receiving that feedback and be aware of it. Another example of this with marketing and personal branding, recently we had something come up where a client of ours posted something on their personal social media pages, but as a face of the brand, we had to let them know, like, hey, you are creating the wrong impression. We know this is not you. You didn't consider these implications when you shared that particular meme that you just thought was funny and it made you chuckle. But maybe it was something that wasn't appropriate for a broader audience and it made people uncomfortable. So those are the types of things that you have to keep in mind when you're sharing things on and putting them out there on social media. Consider what not to share to avoid those bad marketing or those scary bad marketing pitfalls. Consider your content, review everything, have multiple people look at it, filter your strategy, and don't be afraid to not share something based on that feedback and all those different layers of review. And that'll help you really avoid those scary bad marketing pitfalls. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. If you need help with your marketing strategy or help deciding which direction to go for you and your business, we sure hope that you would reach out. We have a really fantastic, creative, and diverse team ready to help you. Thanks again for tuning in. My name is Lydia, and I'm with Elle Marketing and Events.